This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. When I think about a single effect that could be used to make your guitar sound a certain way, I think for me my favourite thing to do with guitar, my favourite single effect is probably reverb. Now the problem that reverb solves in some ways is that when you kind of stick a mic in front of an amplifier, or if you plug straight into a desk, what you lose is this kind of sense of space, because basically then the listener hears something 2 inches away from the speaker cone or whatever, and they don't tend to hear the reflections in the room, whatever space the thing was happening within. And particularly if you're trying to play guitar through headphones or in-ears, that's one of those things where it's like the guitar's right up against your ears and you're thinking, that's not how I'm used to actually hearing a guitar. Now reverb is essentially something like loads and loads of delays put together like a delay network to make this kind of reverb space somewhat. I think that's somewhat accurate. But what I really like, there's all kinds of different reverb. I think spring reverb on an amp is a lovely thing, or can be. Spring reverbs in pedal format don't tend to be quite as interesting to me for some reason. Things that I previously might have thought were a little bit maybe kind of boring, something like a room reverb doesn't sound that sexy. They're actually incredibly useful. The thing that I'm really partial to are these kind of long, kind of lush reverbs that sort of fill up this massive space, and this kind of, to me, sound like sorts of things that you might hear on a Vangelis soundtrack or something, you know, futuristic and sci-fi. That to me is where I really love kind of reverbs, things that are sort of particle reverbs or really long plate reverbs. But in this video I wanted to kind of look at some of the reverbs that the Empress Reverb can do, and just talk generally about reverb and why I dig it. Empress sent this one over, so I wanted to check it out in some sort of video. So this is that, an ode to reverb. Let me know your favourite reverb pedals in the comments if you've got one, or if you've got an effect which you prefer to reverb. I think a close second might be delay, and Andy Timmons actually uses a delay in a really interesting way instead of reverb. And I think there is a good chance that another day of the week delay might be one of my favourites, but I think reverb delay for me are the thing that really help to bring life to a guitar tone, rather than it being this really kind of flat, one-dimensional thing. So here all I've got plugged in is the guitar, so you can hear the direct tone. And
here's the point that I'm making, that I feel like if you just add reverb to a direct guitar, you get fantastic things happening. Obviously, decay, it gives you like the length of time that a reverb will hang around for. Effectively, you could think about it like sort of the size of the space that you're in. Some of my favourite sounds in reverb are when you've got reverb really long decays, and that's kind of reminiscent to me the first time I can remember hearing those sounds with something like Strymon Big Sky. So here is how you can tell the difference between pre-delay. So this is no pre-delay. This is with some pre-delay. Basically you get that kind of slapback thing going on. What that can help to do is make sure that your first have a bit more clarity, or you can use it as sort of like a slapback. That's Hall. I think plate are probably my favourite types of reverb sounds. These are generally, I think, a little bit more metallic, but certainly lend themselves really well to these super long. This one, I think, a bit more of a modern plate. I think the plate for me sits nicer in a mix as well. It's sort of got that more polished sound, whereas a Hall might be like a little bit easier to make it overbearing. Plate kind of sits a little bit better, I find, for my taste. What most of us experience for the first time as reverb that we know of as an effect would be like a spring reverb in an amp. And this to me is one of the less subtle effects, might be a way to. especially when you compare it to sort of modern reverbs. There's not much subtlety to it. Not my favourite type of effect to get from a pedal. Get artifacts like drip and things like that, which are often controllable on reverb pedals. But yeah, for that kind of surf effect. But for me, not the best effect that you find on some of these pedals. The room reverb is something that I've really warmed up to as the years have gone by, because it kind of, especially if you're used to being like kind of playing a modeler and stuff, that is the sound of the room that kind of gets lost a lot. And things like the hall and plate don't necessarily put you in that space particularly, because it's often way bigger than the types of rooms that we actually play guitar in. And I think room is one of the more kind of realistic or sort of emulates that kind of realism and can really help translate a tone. Even when I'm recording a real amp these days, I do tend to put a little bit of a room on like a parallel track, just because it really does help to, I don't know, put it back in that kind of space and bring back some of what is missing when you mic an amp. Were popularised by Brian Eno, and we can control the length of the sparkle and stuff with the thing 1 and thing 2. I think that's one of the more kind of futuristic and really just takes me totally into thinking about things like Vangelis and kind of movie soundtracks like space movies, that sort of stuff. Similarly, modulated reverbs. You know, are doing a similar sort of thing where they've got a bit of modulation on the tail, and you can get all sorts of modulation. You know, this one has tremolo as well, so tremolo reverb. And you can hear that kind of ducking in and out in the background, a really cool effect. One of the key things that people can use a reverb for here. And then I think last of all, the sort of thing that is worth checking out, reverse reverb. Just these are the reasons that I really love reverb. It's just that actually reminds me of the afterneath. It's sort of like a particle reverb. Blending that sort of delay reverb boundary by having sort of delay with really diffused repeats. Let me know your favourite effect in the comments if you want. Let's celebrate our favourite guitar effects. I think reverb is the one for me, and I just wanted to make a little video. Thank you to Empress for sending me out the reverb to check out, and thank you to the gods of reverb. Cheers.